see the outside, but white lies turn to purple elephants. How many times will I have to tell you it? I hope you know how to live with it, cause it's not going away. Don't try it on, don't try it on. White lies turn to purple elephants. Don't try, you'll become irrelevant. You can't train a purple elephant, give it a name and try to lock it away. But how can I take you seriously? You live with purple elephants. You think I'm being dramatic, it's the habit that'll drive you away. Yeah.
Last time on Killin Time.
Here, and this is Killin Time, episode 32. Episode 32. 32.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Hello there, and you are there, and I am here, and this is Killin Time, episode 32. Want to have a little look at a couple of things today. Of course, it's probably known to anyone watching this video that Luke Mitchell had an appeal based off the judgment for his parole hearing, which was rejected. So we will go into that a little bit, but also want to look at some of the reaction from that. A little podcast that was done by FIVO when it was announced the appeal was going to go ahead. Some of the things he went through. And a little appearance from Scott Forbes and Sean Toal of Social Sessions on another podcast for Premeditated Patter 5-0, where they discussed how Luke Mitchell would get out of jail. So a few things to cover. Now, in terms of the big podcast with Scott and Sean and 5-0, that did last quite a length. So I only want to pick we'll go through certain things from that today. In all likelihood, probably will do more about that because, like I say, an hour and 48 minutes, there's quite a lot to go through, but I do want to just pick out the main points, otherwise we'll end up with a 2-hour video instead of a 1-hour video. So let's start off by initially talking about the appeal and how that went down, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Let's go! Right, so before we get into this, I will say, obviously, I appreciate that this update's taken a little while and a lot of stuff has happened in between, but I did feel that, this was worthy of an update. For example, when the appeal was announced, I felt, well, let's do a little update and speak about it. But then the 5-0 podcast was coming out, so I thought, right, I'll leave it till after that, we'll do it then. Then shortly after that was released, it came to light that Scott Forbes was going to do another podcast as well, and there was a decision to be made, so everything kind of kept on putting it on hold. I wanted to cover everything at the same time, but it kind of all snowballed really, which has resulted in there being too much stuff to talk about. A lot of it though is just Scott's lies, so it can be covered in another video, but certain elements we'll talk about now. But to cover the appeal itself, what I will do is I'll put the full decision, the link to it, in the video description, because it's a long read and I think it'd be unfair to go through it in a video because there's a lot of pages. I can cover off the basic stuff, shall we say, and as I say, if you're really interested in looking in the fine detail, the minutiae of it all, the link will be there so you can look through it all. But what you'll basically see is on the first the first date, so the date of the actual parole hearing itself, there was a bit back and forth in terms of the reports that were used. There was a particular report that was given by a psychologist that was redacted for Luke Mitchell, or as Scott Forbes puts it.
What's redacted?
So the file was heavily redacted, and Luke argued that he should have that information to hand. Now, in the decision itself as well, you'll see the reasons why that wouldn't have been. Really boiling down to, safety of others, maybe even the safety of the person that's involved, and in the parole hearing itself. A lot of different decisions, and there's probably a couple that you could pick out that it might fall under. Any kind of things with the victims, or the people who have suffered from it. A lot of different reasons as to why it wouldn't be put in there. But Luke Mitchell argued the case that without that information, his side couldn't really be heard properly in the debate. Now, they did look to try and put that parole hearing on hold because there needed to be decisions made. But instead of that, the parole board decided that they would put that particular report to the side and not factor in any of what that had told them into their final decision. Now, I know a lot of people will argue the fact that it is hard to take information and put it out your head. It can be the case. I mean, not going to lie about that. But in reality, the parole board would still need to essentially come to a decision using the evidence they had to hand, which would not include that report. Now, again, they would have to back up their decision. So the other reports, everything else that's went into the parole hearing itself, that would have to be ample to show about how they came to the final decision. Again, the thing is that surprises me about this is, FIVO and Scott and Sean talk about it on the podcast as well. The fact that there are certain things that are expected of a prisoner to make it to that point. A lot of that can be, workshops working on whether it be the danger to women, or whether it be anything like that, essentially to show that you are, making progression, that there is some form of rehabilitation. So that they spoke about that on the podcast, and it's been known for years. In fact, let's go back to James English and see what Sandra Lee said about it.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do you go further from this now? What's the plans for you now in Luke's case? Because if he was to get a retrial, you're talking maybe another 3-4 years, and has he got a release date yet? Has he got...
No, he got a minimum
20 years?
20, but he won't be eligible for parole because he won't address offending behaviour, he won't participate in any of the training courses or anything because he didn't do it. And from my experience of other cases, that being the case, he won't progress. So
there it is right there. We knew that Luke was not going to progress way back in James English. I find it very strange that come the time when that would be proven right, they suddenly don't remember that they said that, and it's a nasty surprise and it's totally out of order. But they knew years back that Luke would not progress because he was not taking part in what he should as a rehabilitation process for a prisoner. It's as simple as that. So that, again, I don't understand how they can argue this point when we know that that was the case. But again, if they do pile on, make it more conspiratorial, make it seem more like Luke is being punished for something he didn't do, then that only flames the fire, and it gets the smooth-brained minions of Scott and Sandra all up in arms, when in reality is, if they paid any attention to what Sandra had said in the past, they would know that this was going to come. Again, this is standard process. Luke Mitchell may be a miscarriage of justice. Let's just put it out there. Let's say he's totally and utterly innocent. It makes no fucking difference. He has to do these things to progress. Hasn't done them. So taking that psychology report right out of the whole equation, let's just forget that even existed. Let's forget what they said about Luke Mitchell being a danger to women, and let's just hammer down on the point that he is not a special snowflake. He does not get any kind of special treatment because he has eyes on him from a bunch of Facebook and Twitter people. That's not how that works. He still has to follow process, and he hasn't done it for 20 years. So there we go. Anyway, regardless, going back, so that was the first parole hearing. the appeal, of course, the solicitor from Luke argued the case that this should have been made, aware. That Luke should have been made aware of what the contents were. There is some back and forth in terms of the points that he makes. He makes 5 different points about why it was unfair. Each and every single one of them is a non-starter as far as it goes, and it does seem that the solicitor was on a hide into nothing. I don't think there was any chance of a parole board changing their mind on the basis of what he argued. I think it is a little bit more attention for Luke, and at the end of the day, it's not going to go anywhere. The thing that's happening, obviously, now, the next step would be another, chance of parole coming up in April. Again, I don't see what's going to change before now and April. I think, if anything, Luke's shown that he's really not willing to cooperate with doing this. Not to say that'll affect his parole in the future, even though Scott and the followers will probably say that that'll have a detrimental effect with him being denied. But at the same time, I don't see a denial and then a denial of argument to then just be accepted a couple of months later. It does make a lot of sense. So that's my reasoning behind it. You never know, I may be proven wrong, but so far. So that's kind of the decision in itself. Luke Mitchell's parole will not go ahead. The argument based on arguing against the way it was dealt with, again, non-starter, will not happen. Now, Scott has said a lot of things. Scott fucking tends to do, to be fair. About the case, about the hearing, and about the solicitor. Now, the thing is, obviously, we'll say some stuff in the 5-0 video with Sean Toal, but some of the stuff that Scott says is just on X, because what Scott does is bleat for attention, then somebody will pick it up, and he'll then go into more detail, which is a great fairy tale within his head, and that's how more rumours start. I'll show a couple of them on this, actually. So the thing is with Scott as well, he had said that I'll actually find this post, because I do want to just really quote word for word what he said. So here he goes. The judicial review, Jesus Christ, was a waste of time. The lawyer argued the psychology. By the way, Scott cannot and refuses to put an S in the word psychology or psycho. Psycho and psychology. There's a fucking S in there, man. I know you're dyslexic, but at least once, get it fucking right. So the psychology report should have been considered, while Mitchell... Oh, that's spelled wrong as well. Mitchell claimed it should have been considered. The judge, like the parole board, have to consider Mitchell guilty. Like I said, so it was a waste of time. The lawyer argued the psychology report should have been considered, and Mitchell claimed it shouldn't. Then why did Luke Mitchell want to know what it fucking said, Scott? It shouldn't have been considered, but I want to read it. Okay, fair enough. He'd also said, by the way, which is just, whilst I'm here, Luke Mitchell's admin told lies to the public about his return to shots. Now, this will be when he was getting kind of day release and that kind of stuff, going out and about and getting his sale burgers. He failed 2 drugs tests in 8 months. The rules are 2 failures in 3 months. That should have been judicially reviewed to get him back in semi-open conditions. But again, people knew better. That's not true, Scott. And actually, you know what? I won't go into it right now. What we'll do is when we go and watch the Sean Toal and 5-0 chat, I'll show you Sean Toal telling you that point is pish. How's that? Put a pin in it. We'll come back to that. So essentially, Scott does not think that the lawyer or solicitor that was there has done anything in terms of what he would do, because obviously Scott always knows better. You know, Scott's just the best lawyer in the world. I mean, we'll ignore the fact that he keeps calling himself lawyer when in Scotland the terminology is fucking solicitor. We'll ignore that. We'll just ignore that. We'll ignore the fact that he's yet to show any proof about him actually being a solicitor, but we'll just ignore that because he's really, really good at what he does. Actually, in the podcast, he said that he had the same qualifications as Donald Finlay, which it actually made me laugh out loud. Laugh out like he's got the same qualifications as Donald Finlay. What fuck?
It's not true. That's impossible.
Now, I don't want to get too distracted with this. You can probably tell where I am in recording this video when I say there's something else that I need to discuss in this video at some point. So we're really going to need to get through this. Let's go on to the 5-0 pre-podcast that was when the appeal was announced. So what we'll do is, I mean, as I say, so we'll put the link to the whole decision in the description. Have a look through it if you want, but it's a lot of reading. It will give you a better understanding, but we'll have a little look at what 5-0 had said when that had been announced, and as I say, a couple of bits we want to cover there, then we'll move on to a couple of bits we want to cover in the big podcast, and then we'll discuss the breaking news at the end. Let's not even say right now, let's not bury the lead. Moving on, next, just to talk about, quickly talk about a video that 5-0 had put out when the appeal was announced against the decision for Luke's parole. He put out, no, in fact, actually, I should say right up, in terms of this chat that 5-0 done and the one with Sean and Scott, much like Scott, I know nothing about the kind of process that was spoke about at certain points. Understand kind of cursory things in terms of how things work, but in terms of being within the process, they are definitely the best people to speak about it. There's no two ways about it. If they've experienced it, then absolutely they can discuss it. And they'll, like I say, like myself and Scott and everybody else that watched the video, we got an education along with them, I think. As I say, it's that not in any way to besmirch 5-0 Jordan himself as well, because I do think that, I don't think Jordan's a grifter. I don't, at the end of the day. He is a YouTuber, but the kind of reach he has isn't just through the videos that he's made with Scott. Don't get me wrong, there's some of the highest performing videos that he's got on his channel. There are some that don't perform very well, but that's a part of what he does. But at the same time, as I say, I don't think he coasts on what he does in terms of the Luke Mitchell videos, because he's made a go at it in other places. He's been on adverts on YouTube for kind of no win, no fee lawyer things. I've noticed him on that. Obviously, he done the kind of Scottish equivalent, the influencer boxing. He's been on actual real debates and held his own as well. So I don't think Jordan's in any way 5-0 himself. I don't think he's a grifter. I don't think he's anything like that. And I do actually believe that he thinks he's doing the right thing. I don't agree with what he thinks, but as I say, I just want to put that there because at the end of the day, I don't want people thinking that, you know, this is me having a go at him, because I think there's a certain element personally as well. I think he's a great kind of poster boy is the wrong word, but there's no really, I can't think of it right now, but in terms of reform, turning your life around as well, because I do think he's made a real go at what he's done and he's been successful. I think it's, like I say, like a good example of that. So this isn't to, as I say, besmirch him as a person, but I do think in terms of the conversation that he had on the video, because it was just himself chatting, I do think that he went at that from a view of believing what Scott Forbes has said. Now obviously we know where I would find an issue with people believing Scott Forbes, because I think he's full of shit, and I think I've done a good job of proving it. In fact, I think he proves it himself when he just opens that mouth of his. But as I say, in fact, rather than explain it, FIVO actually explained it quite well. So let's what FIVO said.
But they've actually done studies, psychologists, where people will negate any conflicting information if it doesn't attribute to a belief they have.
It's a very strange position to hold, that you state something like that when you're in the company of Scott Forbes. There's no hiding that. But he's totally right. And I think a lot of people will do that in respect to what's happening now, because it dovetails into something we spoke about before in videos, which is rational choice theory, where essentially you'll actively bid against your own self-interest for the idea of victory. And that, FIVO goes on to give an example of an experiment done with the price of houses between a male and a female, and the kind of the influence that can have over decision making when you know what somebody else would predict. So the example rational choice theory is always, you give someone, you can say you can bid for £10 and whoever gets the highest bid will win, but you get to keep all the money. And then two people, as I say, will actively bet against their own self-interest for the idea of getting a tenner cheaper, and even when they go over and above that, they'll still bid because they think, well, I'm in it now and I can't lose. So the only person that wins is the person that was holding the £10 initially. So as I say, it all dovetails into one. Absolutely does. And people are actively ignoring the fact that Scott Forbes is a fake professional and that Sandra Lean has now ran away and hiding and been ousted by our own group because of a number of things. Our lies, the behaviours that she was showing. I think a certain amount of it comes down to her personal behaviour, but I don't know all the ins and outs of that. That's a lot of rumour, and I'm not in speculation station today, so let's not go there. But a number of things, the files, trying to blame other people for those files being in any way destroyed when she left them in lockup for a year and a half without any plan B. Again, go back to it, it just shows that complete disregard. But at the same time, I'm not here to defend the campaign, because I do feel, which we'll cover at the end as well, there's been, like we said before, an insurrection there, and I'm sure we'll get into that at the end. In fact, we will, won't we? Because other people that are watching this video are waiting for that. I'm sure they're waiting for me to talk about that. So I don't want to go right through loads of different clips within this podcast. I think that would be a bit of a waste of time when we've got the bigger one coming up. There are a couple of things that I do want to cover. There are a couple of bits that I'll go back to in another video. But as I say, on the whole, holistically speaking, I think Jordan's biased view taints a lot of things. He's probably his own experience as well, which is negative, taints it. But I wouldn't hold that aspect against him. But in terms of the view itself and the company that he keeps in Scott Forbes, then I think that's tainted the whole idea of what he's going on about. Now, there is one element that I do want to cover, which I'll just play a clip for.
And of course, if I was a relative of Jodie Jones and I believed this man was in jail for a murder, I'd probably have the same opinion. But also, if there was a large amount of people that believed he was innocent, and there were multiple documentaries and podcasts pointing out inconsistencies in the case, plus accusing other people of the crime, some family members as well, I would also have something to say about that. Which to date, not one of the Jones family or anybody else, including the Crown Prosecution Service that have got Luke Mitchell convicted, have done. Nobody has came out, nobody has said nothing about it. I'd invite them, one of Jodie's family, if they wanted to come on and offer their side of it, because we want to hear every side of the argument. We want to make a fair and unbiased view. A parole board will take some guidance for you.
I find it rather hilarious that anybody thinks that the Jones family or the Crown Prosecution Service owe anybody an explanation and should go on the podcast of FIVO to explain them. And he did put up on X as well that he wanted someone to go on and debate Scott Forbes. I think that kind of fell through, and that's where we got the Sean Toal, like Scott Forbes fucking glazing session. It was a big slurping session. I'll get onto that later. But the idea that somebody should debate the fake lawyer who fakes evidence is hilarious. And also the idea that either the Crown Prosecution Service or the Jones family owe anybody an explanation is ridiculous. And if that's an argument for, you know, Scott or Sandra or Murder in a Small Town, you know, showing the truth, then it's a pretty weak argument. We have to remember that Murder in a Small Town was a documentary that was made with the help of Sandra Lean and starred Sandra Lean and Scott Forbes and a lot of other people. They walk in those same circles, though, that little fraudulent circle of these, because this isn't the only case where there's been people making money off convicted murderers, and it's not the only convicted murderer that Sandra Lean made money off.
He's out of line, but he's right.
So, as I say, they got all these people in well-known circles. Everybody comes in, makes the documentary, and people obviously believe it. But it was made by, as I say, Sandra Lean and her cohorts. It involved 2 policemen who were done for fraud. Let's not forget, they were sacked from the police force for breaking the law. I'm sure they're really good arbiters of what a good investigative work is when you consider their past. However, these things are designed in a way, much like Making a Murderer was on Netflix. Anybody actually looked into these things and saw the evidence and like read what happened in court, then they might see a different side of things. And that's one thing that I will say as well, before we move on. FIVO did cover one other element, talking about the statements that were made by the search trio, as people put it. So let's show that one last clip and then we'll move on from this.
And I've had a few people commenting on the Long Walk to Justice documentary I done with Scott. People going like, these manuscripts have came out, this will shut down all the support for Luke Mitchell and all this kind of stuff. I read them.
Oh, did you? Aye.
And the witnesses' accounts and testimony does corroborate. But this isn't what was being said by the people supporting Luke Mitchell. Their argument was that for the first statement to the testimony in court, the statements changed dramatically. There was multiple statements given and they changed over the course of time by the time it went to court.
Oh shit, here we go again.
This is where the issue lies when it comes to actually debating anybody on anything that they promote online. The arguments changed in respect of what was said, and then in a view to defend it, as I say, the subject matter changes. So the whole thing being that changed statements on the search trio side are a bit of a moot point in the respect that when they were on the stand, they agreed with original statements. Now, if they changed statements during the course of questioning, I do believe that would be quite normal. For example, they would take them back to the scene to see if they remembered anything else, the area itself. And I believe it happened in this case as well. So there would be a certain element of other things coming. So they expect the statement to change by doing things like that. I shouldn't have to explain that. That is quite straightforward. However, let's say a couple of elements changed, and let's say by the end of it there was a difference. Now, what we are failing to remember is that on the stand they agreed with their original statements, and the problem with the statement is that all 3 of their search trio statements did not match Luke Mitchell's. Now, the element was not, as Scott Forbes and Sandra Lean would have you believe, that the dog reacted at the wall. The element that differed between Luke Mitchell and the search trio, now we'll say this again, but if we have to say it in every video someone will understand, is the fact that Luke Mitchell claimed he walked past the V in the wall, his dog reacted around about what would have been parallel to where Jodie Jones was lying on the other side of the wall, and then started to paw at the wall. In reality, he went across the V, did not walk past it. Now again, that is the difference between all the statements. People need to argue the actual facts of the case and stop making up their own arguments. There is nothing to say that any statement that did change, again, the people that are arguing, Luke's Army haven't seen statements. This is coming from the lawyer, in big bunny quotes, and the criminologist. And again, the argument is that Luke Mitchell's statement differed because he said he went past the V in the wall and the dog reacted. Again, this whole Mia founder thing that they like to promote as well. The idea that somehow a dog showed both traits of an air scent dog and a trail scent dog and found a body over a wall when we know that the scent would go up in the wind and not come over the wall. It's not water. It doesn't drip like that. That's not how that works. So again, the whole fact of going on about this statement, it's like everything else. Especially things I've pointed out. The argument will be something, I will then point out there is a contradiction or it doesn't make sense, and the story changes. Let's use the penknife for example. The police had it. Then they came out that they didn't have it because they had to hand it in the day before the trial. But then there was two of them. Scott said on FIVO there was two different knives, but then there's only one different knife. And then people like the Luke Mitchell campaign put up something stating that was a conspiracy, that they didn't show the date on the receipt for the knife that was bought at Christmas. Now I stated that was bought at Christmas. And I was right. And I was proven right, as obviously because someone went and searched through the transcripts where they discussed the receipt, and it does certainly say when that knife was bought. But Luke Mitchell's campaign on X, the Luke Mitchell campaign page, decided to promote the fact that there was a conspiracy there, when in reality is they just had to do some research and they would find out it was discussed in court. But yeah, it's a odd conspiracy that they didn't show you the receipt online with the date. My God, these people. It's also, again, worth pointing out that when we talk about changed statements, we need to look at the Mitchell side as well. We know for a fact that Shane Mitchell changed his statement twice, gave 3 different statements. The middle one had his brother there for dinner. The last one showed that he did not see his brother. Again, on the other side of things, Shane's mum, Corinne, and Luke both stated that Shane was not home for dinner on the night of the murder and then changed to being home. So when we look at changed statements, I think it is rather silly that they decide this is a contributing factor whilst ignoring the proven change statements on the Mitchell side of things, when they have people in places and then back out of places and all the rest of it until someone finally admits that they didn't see someone else. Ridiculous. Stop trying to shift the focus here. Stop trying to kind of project what's happened with the Mitchells onto other people and address what happened there, because that's what a good lawyer or solicitor does as well, is they prove their client innocent. They don't try and prove everyone else is suspicious, because that's what it is. It's all suspicion. Same with Mark Cain at the end of the day. Scott changed his focus. For what reason? He still promotes the fact that he thinks Mark Cain should be investigated, knowing that he was DNA tested. So yeah, he's a fucking grifter.
And full of shit, just like a hot dog.
So really, to just wrap this up right now,
working to improve this country, and you deserve
as I say, I think FIVO comes at this from a biased view with the company that he keeps. I think it's funny that he says that we should have a discussion so it can be fair and balanced, whilst at the same time promoting conspiracy from a man who's done nothing but fake evidence and dog whistle online. and attack people for proving them wrong. Simple as that.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
So yes, as I say, I don't think FIVO is a grifter, but I think he has made a very poor choice in terms of where he sits on this and who he sits with. But yeah, what we'll do is let's go into the next podcast, a couple of quick points on this one, and then we'll wrap up with a final kind of topic. But as I say, we will come back to the two of these. There was a lot of things that FIVO said in there, especially going back and grabbing a couple of clips where it's contradiction in terms, and it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I wish there was sense. Where did all this sense go?
So we'll go back through some of that, and the one that we're going to cover quickly here, as I say, there's too much to talk about in one video, and some of these need a wee bit more discussion and breaking down, especially the one coming up. So let's have a quick look at this one, and then the last subject next. And again, we don't want to spend too much time talking about this, because we will do a video all about this podcast, and going through to find a couple of clips. So much there, even without really sitting down. I'll try and cover a couple of quick ones here, but I did promise that I'd show you Sean Toal correcting Scott in real time. We'll also just acknowledge the fact that Scott does not take on board or even kind of say, alright, my bad. Nothing like that. Just makes an assumption, says something about it, shot down, theory out the water, just move on. But remember, he's got the same qualifications as Donald Finlay.
But so it's.
Listen, Mitchell got returned. His group gave a statement recently, and it's victimisation. Luke Mitchell has been victimised. There's no, listen, look, they have to realise he has to be treated as a guilty person, right? And he has to play the system. He won't return for 2 failed drug tests, Sean. Me personally, they should have done a judicial review on him returning. If I remember correctly, you'll tell me better than this. Prison rules is if you fail a drug test 2 in 3 months, they return you.
I think if you fail one, you get returned.
It depends.
I don't know. It depends.
It totally depends on like circumstances and stuff like that.
He got returned for 2 failed tests, right? 8 months.
You would 2 in 8 months. You would.
I wouldn't have a surprise if you get returned for that. To go
I know, guys.
So, to kind of sum this all up and make it as quick as we can, as I say, I will show a couple of examples and whatnot, maybe talk about it quickly, but we've got something else to move on before we wrap up. So, this was a glazing session. This was Scott kind of coming out and defending himself without defending himself. It was a bit strange, really. It was full of the same contradictions.
Right now, Jordan, I don't know. I've never been involved in Luke Mitchell's case for 2 years, but what people, I spoke to a man very much involved in Luke Mitchell's case not that long ago, right? I said, I'm not going to take credit here because I never blow my trumpet. Again, I'm praising myself. I've done brilliant work with that.
The same made up stories in Scott's head with poor explanations.
I've never ever told a lie in this case, Jordan. I look anybody straight in the face. I didn't lie. I've never lied about this case. And I didn't make a mistake. I base my on what I says for statements.
And it was a little bitching session for Scott to do some woe is me. A lot of interjection where he just had to kind of, I don't know, like assure himself before he got into any kind of subject by promising that he was a lawyer.
One thing here. Over the years, I've heard all sorts of things. No, he's not a lawyer, he's a thug, and I can't disagree with my past. I've been told, the trolls tell me I made up these reports. They go to the Law Society, and because you're not registered as a solicitor in Scotland, oh, you're not in the Law Society, you're a liar. I just laugh. I used to take the bait, right? I just laugh. People say that I invented it, went somewhere and made up a graph and put these lists. These trolls are funny. You have to laugh at them, sitting in their wee back bedrooms. I've overturned a murder conviction. Right. People can say, he's not a lawyer, and he never just make up things as they go along in their own wee simple minds, right? Biggest complaint I ever had in law as a lawyer, but I've never been a lawyer, I just played the game. I bought a briefcase and a suit, right? And
even FIVO got on in it.
Check out Scott and X, he's a real lawyer. And
But as I've said plenty of times, if Scott was a qualified lawyer, you would have evidence of it. We would be able to see evidence of it. And I mean, in this, obviously we hear during the chat, Sean refer to Scott as his lawyer. If only, I don't know, if only someone, say Sean, for example, had then, after the fact, admitted that Scott worked on his case when he was going through his traineeship, and therefore he wasn't a lawyer because he was a trainee. But if only that had happened, that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? It would be embarrassing if they just had a public group backslapping session for Scott Forbes to show how much of a lawyer he is, for only to admit 5 minutes after the fact that he was a trainee. And it was during the time that we've been talking about all this time on all the videos, before he was refused to be signed off for his proper qualification. Well, all those I'm no a lawyer, I'm really no a lawyer, although that worked out well. Didn't leave you with egg on your face at all. What a fanny. Like I say though, we don't want to spend too much time on this, but there is a couple of things that we do want to talk about. So, again, we'll probably go into them in a wee bit more depth, or maybe even just kind of recap them in the next video. But it's worthwhile just pointing out a couple of nonsense things that Scott says here. Let's start with the one we showed you a little clippy with his poor excuse making, and let's listen to that full thing in context.
But one of the accusations was I told lies about Jodie and her mum and that, right? And when Jodie's dad committed suicide, and I says Jodie was in the house at the time, and he says I was a liar, and then Jodie was on holiday with her granny, and but I've never ever told a lie in this case, Jordan. I look anybody straight in the face. I didn't lie. I've never lied about this case, and I didn't make a mistake. I base my on what I says for statements, and the statements read on the day that Mr. Jones, I got told that he never killed himself. He was drunk and he fell in the washing line. That come from Gordon David Dickey, right? Anyway, long story. But on the day he committed suicide, Jodie's mum says she gathered up the children, plural, and she went to her mother Alice to come and get the kids. So Alice is meant to be on holiday with Jodie at this time, so how can Alice come and get the kids? And the children living in the house was Joseph and Jodie, so there's children there. So I never based it on lies, right? So I looked into it a wee bit further. On the day that Jodie was murdered, Alan Ovens.
I truly love that phrasing. One of the accusations. It's kind of all the accusations is you're a liar, Scott. But anyway, this one. Let's go over this one again. Why don't we? It's not like Scott's misrepresenting this whatsoever. So, right away, yes, this is something that we spoke about as well, but a number of people spoke about this online. So, during that time when Jodie Jones' dad committed suicide, she was indeed on holiday. However, she was on holiday with her auntie, not her granny. So right away Scott misrepresents that, or he's lying, or he's wrong, or he's made a mistake. But like he says there, he doesn't make mistakes. He just bases it, well, he does guess, but he bases it apparently on what he sees. But there was one element there which we'll just talk about really quickly. His defence of that is that on some statements it says that Jodie Jones and had what was it he said? Gathered the children. And that in the house, the people that lived there was Joseph and Jodie. So that was what he based it on, because the pluralisation of children there. However, there is one person missing from all that, and that would be Joseph Jones and Jodie Jones' sister, Janine Jones. So when they said that they gathered the children, that would be because 3 children lived in that house, and 2 of them were still in the house at the time of the father's suicide. Now, again, after the the move, I believe, from Mayfield to East Houses, Janine Jones did not leave the house. So at that point, the only people living with Judith Jones would have been Joseph and Janine Jones. But that was years after the fact, years after their father's suicide. So in the original house, there was 3 children. So no, there's no great conspiracy. You've not defended yourself there, Scott. What you've done is just pointed out that you can't fucking count. As well as not being able to fucking read and spell and all the rest of it, you can't fucking count. 3 children in the house, one of them away on holiday, so gathering the children would still be pluralised. This is not hard to understand.
Is he stupid or is he lying? Maybe both.
Remember though, Scott doesn't make mistakes. It's not like he said that the police had the Jack Pike knife in their possession all along for it to turn out that it was only handed in the day before the fucking court case started. But he doesn't make mistakes though. Don't worry guys, like 5-0.
Trust me, I've investigated it.
Like I say, this video has so much, so I'm going to do a full length update on this video and rip all this apart. I'll say in summary here, I think 5-0 basically chairs the meeting, although there are a couple of comments that he throws in that are biased, wrong, and just essentially backslapping Scott. Like I said, this was a glazing session. This was just like the human centipede of mutual respect in terms of loving Scott and what comes out his mouth. But it's the same, well, in fact, what comes out his mouth.
To believe what they... And we can't let...
The thing being though, it is basically what it set out to be, I think, was validation for Scott, which really, it was that I actually hurt with the cringe. I really did. I'm not being hyperbolic. I hurt with the cringe. There was certain points where it was just pathetic, looking like some fucking 90s lesbian. He does though, doesn't he? He's aging like a lesbian. But anyway, sorry to all those older lesbians out there that I'm comparing you to Scott Forbes. However, as I say, it was that for Scott, essentially, that it was a glazing session for Scott. Sean trying to back him up by obviously having some interaction with him, only to 5 minutes later put up on X that it was when Scott was a trainee. Again, that's just that kind of sums it up, really, doesn't it? That's like, right, yeah, Kenny, yeah, you're right, absolutely, you're right. But let's not have any kind of correction. Let's not have that. Let's just keep on going with the idea that you were proving Scott to be a solicitor. Fuck, honestly, this is... But... Oh. So, at the risk of all this nonsense and whatnot, trying to summarise it quickly here, causing me a fucking tumour.
I'm a tumor, I'm a tumor. I'm a tumor, I'm a tumor, I'm a tumor.
I'm just going to talk about one more thing. From this anyway. As I say, we'll do another video and we'll go more in depth about it, but one more thing from this and we'll address the elephant in the room. And I am the fucking elephant.
People write that to you and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
See the troll, him that, what the founder, whatever, I didn't care, he's right, I've got him.
Nah, don't name him.
I didn't, no, I'm not going to do, right, I could make him famous, I didn't want it. He's got 20 followers. And what, the real thing is...
Make sure you bleep that.
he gets people who want to destroy Sandra Lane because they fell out with Sandra and then they hate me because they think I was defending Sandra. But I didn't get what their purpose is. They're hurting Luke Mitchell.
I don't know.
They believe Luke Mitchell's innocent, but they want to hurt Luke Mitchell. They used to be supporters. They've now joined sides with the folk that think Luke Mitchell's a beast. His girlfriend helps people who think their boyfriend's a beast. I just didn't get... Listen, I understand the hatred. People can hate each other and that Forbes is a prick.
I want to start by pointing out one thing here. The word beast. I don't get the use of this. And I want to just point out here as well, at no point have I said, or will I say, that Luke Mitchell is a beast, because that's something different as far as I'm concerned. Luke Mitchell is guilty of murder. That's what I think. Beast is a Scott Forbes word. However, there is one element of what Scott Forbes said during that little chat that was true. Replay it.
That Forbes is a prick.
So I did get 2 mentions on this, and I do want to cover both of them, but I want to cover a point that was made in this bit where Scott says that the Gemma is helping people who think that Luke is a beast. Now, that would mean then that Scott is of the belief that the letter that I showed came from Gemma. Now, we're missing a little bit of a important element there if that's the case. Scott Forbes, just by proxy, admits that he was not Luke Mitchell's lawyer, because that's what that letter said. If he thinks that people are passing over information, then that information is real, isn't it? So Scott lied all along, and then admitting to Luke that he wasn't his lawyer, and he just blows past it on this like nothing. No one questions him as to what Gemma did to make him think that he's working, that she's working against, or working with people, that think Luke Mitchell's a beast, as Scott puts it. But that means that letter is true. That means Scott was never Luke's lawyer. So he's on this podcast defending himself as being a real lawyer, while slyly admitting that he was never Luke Mitchell's lawyer and he lied about it. Why is it no one can see this? Why is it no one points these things out? And I'm not talking about the people on the podcast. I'm talking about the people that listen to it. Does anyone actually really watch this podcast and listen? Is it just the same old great podcast guys with the same names? The what was that one that was on the first video? Because she's still about Val. First person we ever replied to in comment corner, still kicking about in FIVO's videos. All the same smooth-brained minions of Scott Forbes and Sandra Lean who took nothing on board about what's happened and the behaviours that have shown. Everyone else that was around them did, hence why the group died and one changed, and there's even people actively said that they would stop supporting Luke Mitchell because of what happened with Sandra Lean. That's a cult of personality. It was never about Luke Mitchell. It was all about Sandra Lean, Scott Forbes, and a bit cash. And now he's the only one left defending himself, swinging wildly while Sandra Lean sits in the corner and says, fuck all. But anyway, let's have a look at the other wee mention that he gave us, and we'll break this down. And I'm going to put it, I'll tell you in advance, we're going to break this bit down, this argument down, in a very petty way, but at the same time, maths is maths, man.
Right. Give yourself title and all that, right? Anyway. She did brilliant work. Right. You're laughing there.
No, because he says he gave herself titles.
Aye, they gave herself titles like lawyer. Aye, imagine doing that. That'd be pathetic.
The troll tells you he's working towards a worldwide audience for a celebrity guest. Fuck, he's got to be 10 folk for them and they're talking to each other, do you know what I mean? When are you doing the next video? He's talking to Shell and he's telling you, I've got a word.
Who's this, the one that's trolls?
Aye, I've got him, I'll show you, I'm right.
The same one.
Aye, 100%.
So to put this in context very quickly, what Scott Forbes is referring to is the description for the channel, my channel. Now, initially, I was going to do other different videos. I'd started this off thinking do a lot of things where, how can I put it, the victim wasn't really a forefront of the story, but we got tied into this, we got pulled in and everything else happened. Anyway, regardless, that's an old story. But the description itself had originally, I should have changed it, granted, lazy. A podcast looking at crime across the world from the ordinary everyday person to worldwide celebrities. We look at the accusations, evidence and the outcome. Now, I'm not looking for a celebrity audience. What I've said there is worldwide celebrities. And you'll see the only other long form video that's really on here is the story of the murder, double murder suicide of Chris Benoit, which, in case anybody didn't know, he's a celebrity and he's from Canada. So Scotland, Canada. That was kind of where I was going with that. The next one that I never actually ended up putting up was about a Brazilian football player as well, who had had his mistress killed. However, let's not get facts in the way of this. So, as I say, the whole idea, it's misrepresentation again for dismissal. So, Scott likes to go on about you hear him there about the 10 followers and me talking to myself. So, all the people listening to this video, I'd like you to know that you are me. You are Spartacus. And that we are all the same person experiencing life, well, subjectively, I suppose. I don't know, are we one mind with a split personality? Is that what it is? Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. So, welcome to my life. You are me, I am you. Let's not look at the fact that how many followers or subscribers do I have? Which would mean every single one of this number is me, and I am subscribed to my own channel. So, every one of these views on these videos is all me. There's 10 different people, isn't there? So, let's break that up into 10. Thank you for watching that video, guys. What would have been hundreds of times for it to get to where it is. And thank you for making, well, it must be the other 9 of us, making all these fake profiles on YouTube. Does anyone else feel a bit silly listening to me say that? Because I certainly feel silly saying it. At the end of the day, as I say, the dismissal is childish. Now, again, this is not about point scoring, but maths is maths. Let's look at the amount of followers that FIVO has. Subscribers, sorry. There's the number there. Let's look at one of the highest performing videos on his channel, which is way higher than mine. Let's not lie about that. There it is. It's a big number. Now let's look at his average videos and how they perform. There we go. There's some numbers here. Can we see? Yep. Look at them. How many views he got there. Now let's look at some of mine. And what do we all notice with these numbers? They're very similar, aren't they? Considering the amount of subscribers that FIVO has, his normal output, in terms of views, can vary wildly. And again, this is not a reflection on him. This is how YouTube works. To use these numbers, like I'm doing now, is totally subjective. There is no real evidence by using it like this. But it does show that these things are very similar. To dismiss me or anything that's said on this channel by the people that comment and the people that watch these videos is negated by the fact that he's on a channel with similar kind of following results. Again, subscribers wise, brilliant. But then again, you would hope the views would be up a wee bit higher with the amount of subscribers. Me personally, I like to have more views on a video than I do subscribers. That's just a good kind of gauge, even if it's only slightly more. You know, to this point, the subscribers have risen and the views have risen at the same time to still meet my what I call target, so to speak. But it's just a kind of something to work towards. Otherwise, it's everyone needs a goal. I'm sure FIVO has them, but I don't know what his is. Maybe his is just the same kind of numbers that I do. And again, I wouldn't hold it against them. It's not evidence. It's just want to point out the fact that dismissing somebody's point by saying they're all fake profiles and not got any following is just childish. It's just fucking silly. And I think it goes to a point, it goes to the same point as when it comes to him saying he's a lawyer. It would have took less time, as I've said before, to fake a qualification than it has for the lot of stuff that he's done. But he just doesn't do it. And there's a reason for it. Again, with Sean saying that he was a trainee, it just shows that stunt after stunt falls flat on the face. A little random synapse just fucking fires up in his brain and just shit falls out his mouth, and then you're left with it. And at the end of the day, he doesn't make mistakes, but I can prove that he's made loads. This, however, is a bit fucking pathetic. I know Scott watches these videos. I know he'll be watching this video. At the very least, he'll have his other half watch the video. Hiya. Because he uses my terminology, he quotes me, he obviously looks at the videos when he's saying that people are asking when the next one's coming out. That means he's reading fucking comments. Scott likes a sock puppet account as well, so there's a good chance that we've had some interaction on our channel. I firmly believe we have. He's offered to come on this channel. Then he's called me all shades of shit. He's called me... Well, he's accused me of being Joseph Jones. He accused me of being one of my followers, William. Me and William were a gay nurse, apparently. Now, that's another thing that I want to point out as well. The rampant homophobia and anti just fucking anything that Scott has drips into everything. And I want to show you a little post that he put up on X that shows the childish dismissal, the dog whistling, the lying, and the general abhorrence of a fake-ass, dusty old fraud who thinks he has motion when he has no relevance and is clinging on to it through a couple of pals who don't know any better. So while in conversation about me with his little fucking... don't even know. Her profile photo looks like she's trying to smell the origins of a fart. However, when he was in discussion about me, Scott said this. He gets fed by a bunny boiler who was rejected by a look but his attacks on me are personal. Well, I'm talking about you, so you would fucking think that, yeah. He is a real creep, an unhealthy interest in nursery school kids. When he isn't obsessed with me, he's just a sad creep. So, that was just what do you call it? Me apparently being accused of being a paedophile. Or at least that's what the dog whistling would have you believe, which again is childish, fucking abhorrent, absolutely ridiculous, and just what I expect from this sad old fraudster. The thing is with Scott as well, I mean, that's not obviously where he fucking left it though, is it? Because Scott has to start all these rumours, he has to start other ones, he has to... I can't even get... You know what? I'll show you another couple of posts. Another one that he put up that day as well. I published crime scene photos and he doctored them. Again, can anybody show me where I have shared any crime scene photos on any platform whatsoever? Anyone show me that? You'll have a hard time fucking finding it, because I believe the act of actually sharing those photos is disgusting and I will not do it. So him accusing me of doctoring photos is shit. But anyway, he goes on. He is a creep, calls himself a content creator and hangs about nurseries claiming he works with children. Once I hear from the expert Callum, I'll leave the conversation. I don't like giving the creep traction. There you go. Just everybody's a fucking pedo. Everybody's a pedo. Everybody's a drunk. Everybody's a troll. Everybody's one of the Jones family secretly fucking trolling him on X. Oh, and there's the other one as well, where I'll put up the post. I won't read it out because I don't want to keep on going with this one, but I'll just put it up on screen just now. Wait for this one to come up on podcasts. Read that there. Scott Forbes now claiming that the police bugged Luke Mitchell's house. Here's a fresh fucking pile of shit for you to swallow, eh?
No. No, I don't think I will.
It is worthwhile pointing these things out as well, because this isn't the only example of Scott Forbes doing this. Now, let's remember, we've got there, I'm apparently a fucking paedophile who hangs about nurseries or some shit. Which is, if anyone can't see that dog whistling, I can't help you much, really. But let's give another couple of examples just to show the point here. When Scott had said that I was Joseph Jones, what he also did was say that Joseph Jones was in, well, actually it came previously as well, but he was in a gay relationship, a secret gay relationship, with one of the people who actually follow this channel. Scott and his little attack dog, the one that's trying to smell the origins of the fart, troll-faced little fucking muppet, her and Scott, spread the rumour that this listener, I won't name him, was, as I say, in a secret gay relationship with Joseph Jones. Now, at one point, I was also that listener. So I've been the listener, I've been Joseph Jones, I've been William, the gay nurse, and I've been a paedophile. So, if anyone can't see that Scott is dog whistling for his homophobic nature and his hatred of, well, anything LGBTQ really, and of course paedophiles, which is totally acceptable. Everybody should fucking hate paedophiles, they're fucking vile. But, as I say, he wants to tie all this in here to besmirch people, to shut them up. Rather than fucking addressing the point of the fact that he is a liar, he will try and make everyone out to be a deviant. And that's a word he uses all the time. Comes to politics, comes to just chatting online, even when it comes to just fucking defending himself. Everyone else is a deviant, a paedophile, a fucking secret homosexual, anything like that, just so it looks like he's got some credibility. But in reality, anybody with a sane brain, anybody not on this crazy train, will actually look at that and think, what the fuck is this guy all about? Where is he getting this from? He's an idiot. He really is.
Stop it. Get some help.
And I mean, even when it comes down to the fucking defence of anything that he comes out with, it's like he doesn't actually pay attention to what's there. Maybe he thinks it disappears, maybe he thinks facts, maybe he's a baby. He has no object permanence whatsoever. He's like, he just, as soon as it's out of his vision, he just doesn't fucking remember it exists. Is that what it is? Do you have object permanence, Scott? Are you a baby? So on to our last subject, and some that a couple of people will be interested in. I'm sure that's why they turned on this video, so we'll leave it to last, just to keep them here. Kidding. So, congratulations are in order. For those who didn't see it, killer Luke Mitchell gets engaged to supporter who campaigns for his freedom. This is from the Daily Record, the paper that Scott does not like. So, the murderer began his relationship with his fiancée in 2005 as she stood by him despite being locked up. Convicted murderer Luke Mitchell has gotten engaged to a woman who has supported him in his campaign for his innocence for the past 20 years. I mean, she disappeared for a fair bit. She's not actually been there for the full 20 years. It's kind of in the same way that sewage is always there, but you only catch it, like the smell of it, up your nose every now and again. Not that I'm comparing Gemma Chapman to sewage at all. I would do that to sewage. So, Mitchell, who is serving a life sentence for the 2003 murder of his teenage girlfriend Jodie Jones, proposed to Gemma Chapman in November at HMP Shots in North Lanarkshire. The killer was transferred back to a high-security prison after failing 2 random drug tests in Greenock Prison, which he blamed on mistreatment by fellow inmates. Mistreatment by fellow inmates made him take drugs. Fuck me. What a fucking dick. What an absolute poor excuse. Sorry, I'm just actually kind of like letting that fucking sink in for the first time. So, Chapman has defended Mitchell, describing him as kind, caring and loving man, insisting he was wrongly accused of the brutal killing of 14-year-old Jodie in Dalkeith in 2005. In 2005, Gemma, who lived with her parents in Edinburgh, said in a letter to a friend, I could go on all day telling of 4 or 5 different people who could have murdered Jodie. And the funny thing is, all of them would have more evidence to prove it was them than Luke did. Fair enough. She expressed the pain of being apart from Mitchell. It's so painful being away from the man I love and feeling angry because I don't know the truth and I'm still standing by him. But I thought there was 4 or 5 people that you could say were guilty and had more evidence, but you don't know the truth. Very fucking hot and cold in the same sentence there, Gemma. Mixed signals here, mate. I'm confused and very scared of making the wrong choices. Too late! I did not want him to be guilty and wasting my time with him. Again, too late. The source told Scottish Daily Express he asked the prison permission and did it after he was returned to Shotts. His parole condition, if he got it, would only permit him to be with a named woman. But this isn't in any way suspicious. It's just a coincidence, guys, that he needs to be with a named woman, and now he has a named woman. Just a fucking coincidence, though. Nothing to see here at all. And if you believe that, I've still got that bridge to sell you. Mitchell was 14 when he stabbed Jodie to death. Jeff? Really fucking up here. In woods near her home in Dalkeith, Midlothian. He was sentenced to serve a minimum term of 20 years before being eligible for parole. Luke and Jodie had been dating for 4 months when he murdered her in what Judge Lord Nimosmith later described as truly an evil murder. Jodie was reported missing on June 30th, 2003, and Mitchell claimed his dog led him to her while he was searching for her, which again is fucking impossible, but you guys will actually have to look into reality before you acknowledge that. She was found with her hands tied behind her back, her throat cut and her body repeatedly slashed. After a 10-month investigation, Mitchell was arrested and at 16 was convicted in the High Court in Edinburgh 2005. Now 36, Mitchell was denied parole last April after a psychiatric report branded him a sexual risk to women. And now he has lost his legal appeal against the decision not to release him from prison in Scotland's highest court. Mitchell, who maintains his innocence, instructed lawyers to lodge a petition for a judicial review, nailed it, on the decision of the Parole Board for Scotland not to release him on licence last month. Now, love doesn't judge, but I fucking do. And this idea that Gemma would argue, Luke's a caring, loving man, and he wouldn't do anything to anyone, is very much undone by her own fucking behaviour. Now, what do I mean by that? A lot of people will have seen a video that I done a while ago that I keep on promising I'm going to put back up and never do, because everything else comes up. But in it, I was sent, or I was supplied, with a voice note from Gemma. Now, Gemma actually... or someone, can't say it was Gemma actually, to be fair. I really can't say it was her, but I can. Had that video taken down just for that little bit. So I can't play that voice note. It's unfortunate. I can't let you hear the kind, loving and caring person that Gemma is. What I can do though, is I can quote exactly what she said and put it in a little bit like I did at the start of this video. Yeah, like we text to speech here. So for those who don't know who Gemma is, and for those who've had no experience of what she does, what I'm going to do is just now is quote her voice note, word for word. Let me tell you, if this couple seems like a loving and caring and kind couple, or if they seem like two fucking psychopaths who are really suited to each other. Let's listen.
Or Sandra having a word, because Sandra deserves to have a word after being outright abused by Sharon and her minion lapdog Steph and her fucking bumchum Matt, who has obviously been fed the same lies. And it's disgusting. And I will always stand by Luke. And I will stand by Sandra. And I will mow down any fucker that tries to sabotage what Sandra and Scott are trying to do for my friend Luke.
So again, when you hear Scott saying about how Gemma had threatened to mow down people, that means what? He's watching my fucking videos, because that's where it came from. So get your angry typing down there, Scott. I think I know actually. Can't say 100%. Let's say 95%. Think I know what one of your little sock puppet accounts keep fucking commenting on this. So out you come, Scott. Tell me I'm on coke. Go on. Because you can't do anything but nick my fucking, my shit. So come. Tell me all this shit. At the end of the day, all these folk, all of them are fucking crooks. They're fucking violent. They're bullies. They're just vile people who are good at manipulating. That's the thing. They're all very good at manipulating people. They learn from the master, Luke Mitchell, who has done a great PR job when it comes to him. Again, not one of these people have ever explained his lack of alibi, the missing items, because it's not about the evidence to hand, it's about the absence of evidence. And anybody, solicitor, lawyer, detective, or otherwise, would understand that. But these people have manipulated, they have lied, and they have gotten away with it. Now, I think it's about time that people should not attack, right? That's not what I'm saying. I don't think we should go to these people's personal Facebook pages or their personal X pages and pile on. What I think you should do is educate people around you to the fact that they fell for a graft. These corny ass fucking fraudsters have made a lot of money off a murder victim and tortured their family, accusing them of all sorts with nothing but fake evidence. And again, Scott saying that me accusing him of making these grafts up is something fucking totally alien and out of the question is not, because put it up again. There is the cell selector. This is something made on his computer. There is no way around that fact. It is a fact. If you get sent a PDF file, you cannot edit it after the fact. It will not let you. And why on God's green earth would anyone be able to edit an official document containing evidence for a court case? Why would people let them do that? Again, please, someday just load up Google spreadsheets and have 5 minutes play about on it, and you'll see what I mean. This guy's a fucking fraud. He is not in any way answered to any of his shit. He just makes excuses. But when it comes to the wedding, the engagement, there will be a wedding, I suppose. But when it comes to the engagement, does anybody else just see that's a transparent fucking move on Luke Mitchell's part? Because now he needs a named woman. If he doesn't have a named woman, he's got even less chance of getting out of jail. So now he's got one. And I hate to be that guy, but is Gemma really that fucking stupid? Is she? Well, but it looks like she is, because she said yes. She said yes, folks.
Yeah. She said yes! Man and wife.
So there we go. Convicted murderer who sits in jail, tortures his victim's family by getting a campaign with equally vile, abhorrent liars and fraudsters to cover his back. Simple as that. But who's going to be congratulating Luke Mitchell and Gemma Chapman? Anyone sending them flowers? Going by the online kind of reaction to it, there was a lot of people saying that she was stupid. There was a lot of people saying that she would be his next victim. And then there was the same people who argue with me on X and on my fucking comments page that just started talking about how sperm samples. Again, those things aren't fucking real. And if you do believe they're real, and you believe what Scott says, I still have a bridge to sell you. Well, that was a long one, guys. That was a very busy one. And normally I try and kind of end by getting your idea what you think, but there's so many fucking subjects in this video that it's hard to nail down a question. that I can end you or leave you with. So, there's a couple of them, really. A, what do you think about the fact that Luke Mitchell's appeal is dead in the water? Did you think that ever had any chance of going anywhere? Or do you, like me, think that was just a stunt to try and look like there's motion there, when in reality there's not? A 30,000 signature on a petition, the wrong kind of petition that won't be taken in and can be signed by people more than once. Again, that's the backing for it. Again, next, the idea of the podcast with Scott and Sean. What do you think about the fact that Sean came out and 5 minutes later admitted that Scott wasn't a fucking lawyer because he was a trainee? So what was the point in any of that hour and 48 minutes, rather than Scott lashing out, pretending he was a lawyer and attacking people like me, calling me a paedophile, which is fucking childish? And what do we think of the great news? Are we all happy? Are we all going to be sending our well wishes and our greeting cards and our wedding gifts? I'm thinking, what would we get? Maybe a coffee machine? We get a coffee machine. Will he be allowed that in jail? Will he be allowed a coffee machine? I don't know. We'll have to think about it, because we obviously you don't want to get anything they can't use. We could get it for Gemma, I suppose. It's not like she's taking advantage of any situation so that she gets something out of it. Not like that happened at all, is it? But anyway, like I say, love doesn't judge, but I fucking do. And I think that this is not only transparent in terms of needing a named person, so it looks like he's a fucking human, but also it's just another stunt. It's just another publicity stunt, and he can keep those going all he wants. I wonder if Sandra was happy for the two. She didn't put up anything about it, and it's funny, neither did the Luke Mitchell campaign. No one seems to want to acknowledge Luke's good news, even his campaign and his supporters. Why's that? Let's not read into that too much, apart from the fact that it's just another transparent, oh, that's a bad move. But anyway, what do you guys think of this whole thing? I mean, I will go back and we'll do the longer video with Scott Forbes and Sean Toal. So if there's anything that you want me to talk about in advance, stick it in the comments below and I'll go into it. If there's any questions you had about stuff that they said, again, stick it down below and I'll see if we can cover it in the next video. Thank you all for, again, your continued views and your subscribers. Even though we're only the same 10 people, it's really good to have you 10 with me. Thank you for being here. But yeah, leave a comment down below, but don't be a Derek. As we always say, leave us a little sarcastic thumbs up. Push it once, push it twice, push it 3 times, and we know it's sarcastic. Follow us on X. That's the only thing I'm on just now, but I'm looking at other things, maybe Blue Sky or something like that, with the fact that X is just an abhorrent cesspit of racist, homophobic, sexist idiots like Scott Forbes. So I'm looking at that. We might do Blue Sky, might stay on X, but I don't fucking know. Honestly, social network is a joke. But you can follow us on X for now, at the very least. And as I say, we'll be back soon. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
So thank God that's over. I mean, it's over, right? There's not more, right? I mean.